Joshua 4. Let's call this one a memorial because that is going to refer to the fact that as they are passing through the Jordan, God is going to tell them that they're going to need one man from each tribe to pick up a stone that is going to be set up at the place where the priests are holding the ark. Joshua is going to tell them that in years to come, when they are asked, okay, why are these stones here? They're going to be able to tell them it's because of the way that God brought them through the Jordan River on dry ground. And later on, we're going to see that the people are going to do all that God has asked them to do. And more importantly, or maybe just as importantly, as they are getting this together, the priests are there bearing up the ark. And can you imagine what it might have been like for the priests to be under the weight of the ark for that long as the people collected the stones, Joshua gathered them, and everything was completed so that everybody could then move forward to the other side of the Jordan. And so ultimately what's going to happen is by the time we get to the end of the chapter, this is not going to just be a memorial for Israel, because it's going to say that this is going to be a sign for all peoples that the Lord does mighty things. In some ways, this points backward to what we've already seen Rahab say about the people of Jericho and the things they've already heard about Israel as they've moved toward Jericho. But even further, as they move towards a town called Gibeah, or a series of towns belonging to people called the Gibeonites, they're going to learn that the kings west of the Jordan that they haven't faced yet have already heard that God has done mighty things for them as well, going all the way back to the stories of what happened in Egypt and then again to kings like Sihon and Og. And so in many ways, that points forward to something we've talked about before, Israel as a nation being a light to the Gentiles. It seems to be an early indication of how God was going to use them and exalt them for a higher purpose, to show people his plan for reconciliation, not only of mankind to a more peaceful relationship with him, but an indication of the way he is trying to bring us back into more peaceful relationships with one another. But they are going to, in chapter 7, realize a pause in their success as a man by the name of Achan is going to do a seemingly small thing by taking some of the devoted things God has told them to set aside for another purpose. He's going to take them for himself. And it's going to cause the entire nation enough trouble that their success is going to stall at a city named Ai. But before we even get there, on the flip side, a more positive end, is as the priests are holding up the ark as the nation is passing through, it's going to describe the people as moving forward quickly, seeming to, one, be conscious of what the priests are doing on their behalf, and then two, considerate of the burden that the priests are under as they're holding up the ark so that the people can pass through on dry ground. And it reminded me of just something simple. Yesterday when I was in the parking lot, grocery store, I paused for a young man so he could pass by, and he casually strolled in front of my car. And so even though I'm happy to say that that is not the norm, those kinds of things happen, but it did not leave me with a very good impression of that young man. Understand Joshua's concern when things fall apart for them at Ai, when he appeals to God and says, what are these nations that have already heard these great things about what God is doing for us now going to think when they've seen us fail at Ai? And I thought back to that situation in the parking lot the other day, and I thought hopefully that young man who was casual in his approach to stroll in front of my car was just representing himself and not God. Why? Because chapter 4 is reminding us of the way in which God is setting up a memorial to the great things that he has done for Israel and he is willing to do for all mankind. But physical memorials are not the only remnant that God has for the work that he is doing amongst his people. Why? Because Achan's conduct was a memorial as well, and it's not just Achan. Each and every one of us in the things we do, no matter how small, are representing God to the degree we are known as his people. And so if God is doing great things, God willing, we are not undermining the great things that he is doing with small or even petty conduct. Why? Because even when I'm trying to do the right thing, I don't always get it right. And I often say that requires what we sometimes call damage control. How much worse when I'm intentionally indulging small or petty conduct. And so to the degree we make mistakes, we have an opportunity actually to do great things, because it can take a lot of courage to own up to the things that you've done wrong. So that even when we do things that we either regret or honestly should regret, we display that we're the kind of people that take seriously the need to develop great character. That is an appropriate memorial for the God who does great things.